Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to my best chess games of all time series. So in this series we see the best of the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and today I want to show you a really nice game played by these top grandmasters and really one of the best chess players in history, Bobby Fischer and Mikhail Tal. So the game that I wanted to show you today, it was played in 1961, so almost 60 years ago. And it's unbelievable how Mikhail Tal and Bobby Fischer played the game at their best level. And I don't know if I have to decide which of them I like more. I don't know. I liked both of them. I like Bobby Fischer's brilliancy. I like Mikhail Tal tactics. So I have watched many of their games. But this game that I wanted to show you today, it was really important this year, 1961, because Bobby Fischer made really progress in his chess, and he hasn't beaten Mikhail Tal so far. So in this game, he finally got a breakthrough and managed to win a game against the magician from Riga. So. But we all know about Bobby Fischer's career. Maybe he could have gone even much further, but he had his issues, like also Mikhail Tal. Mikhail Tal maybe could have played even better, and maybe could have stayed longer the world champion in chess. But both of them, although they weren't maybe the longest world champions, they had a really great impact in the continuation of the chess history, and they deserve, of course, all of our respect. So this game that I wanted to show you today, it's really I think an attractive one. We have many tactical ideas. We have also these tactical setups by both of these players. So you see in this beginning that Mikhail Tal will go into a wild variation in an early stage of the game, but will get punished because Bobby Fischer was really as I said, he was raising, and he was really one of the best tactical players in chess history. So here, let's see the game. We had e4 by Bobby. We have c5 by Mikhail Tal. Now knight on f3, knight on c6, and now d4. Still common theory. This is now the Sicilian defense. We have now many ideas here for black. Black can transpose in many variations with g6, e6, d6, or even with a6. So we can have a Najdorf French Sicilian setup. We can also have the Dragon Sicilian setup. Here after c takes d4, we have knight takes on d4, and now e6. Now we have the French variation of the Sicilian, which is I think a good opening line, because you can play, like in the French, some pinning ideas here with move bishop on b4. But here after knight on c3, Mikhail Tal goes into this Paulsen variation. And okay, I myself I don't like this Paulsen variation because of this many weaknesses on dark squares, because after a6 of course it prevents some knight on b5 ideas. You create even more holes in your position, and then the only idea by black is maybe to try a bishop on d6 move and get use of this very important diagonal here. So here we have g3 played by Bobby Fischer, preventing such ideas, because in the continuation, of course, the threat is bishop on f4. This g3, it's not so much that you have prepared bishop on g2. This bishop on f4 is much more important in the continuation of the game, because, as I said, we want to get use of this diagonal and support it with this maybe knight on b5, and with the queen on d1 we would have a huge control of this very weak d6 square. I hope you realize that this d6 square is the main weakness in black's position. And here Mikhail Tal tried to move knight on f6. Now we have knight from b to d5. It's still not a problem, because after queen on b8 and bishop on f4, here maybe Mikhail Tal didn't play the most accurate move. I don't know about his preparations in this game, but here I think an e5 move is perfectly fine. And if you try something like bishop on e3, here a6, I think is very powerful. You have to bring the knight on a3, and then you have b5 with the immediate threat to play the move b4, and here you have to play knight on b1, and then after potential b4 move, knight on a4, and here you can simply take the pawn on e4, and after bishop on g2, knight on f6. Okay, white has of course a better activity in this line, but still with one pawn up anything can happen. You have to develop also your knight, but I think here knight on d2, then knight on c4 again comes with this idea to occupy this d6 square, because d5 of course it's not possible, because we have a double attack on the d5 with the queen and the bishop. So that's why d5 isn't possible. In order to develop the bishop, the light square bishop, you have to play d6, and this d6 would be really a weak pawn in the continuation. So as said, here black is one pawn up, but has a lack of development, has a lack of activity. Here I think white can play, but here after bishop on f4, Mikhail Tal, well, he made really wild move here, knight on e5, getting this knight pinned. So he gets into a tactical line immediately. He wants to, he really searches for tactics with this move knight on e5, and that's why this game was, I think, really a great one, because both of the players are really always searching for tactical ideas. So here, pardon me, bishop on e2 was played, which is the best move. It's the most accurate move, and here Mikhail Tal played the move bishop on c5. Maybe now a potential d6 move would be perfectly fine. Still you have the problems on the d6 square, but at least you can play something like bishop on e7 and castling, and maybe finish your development. But of course Bobby Fischer would have gone maybe something like queen on d2 and then rook on d1, or rook on d1 with queenside castling. So this d6 is always a weakness, but still we have the possibilities to kick away maybe the knight with a6 and then again with b5. So I don't know. Bishop on e2 was played, and here bishop on c5. This is now really aggressive by Mikhail Tal. He didn't play this d6 move. He wanted to play more actively with this dark square bishop, and here we have a very powerful move, bishop on e5 by Bobby Fischer. This bishop on e5 is really suggested by top engines now. Bishop on e5, of course, queen takes on e5, and now we have f4. After queen on b8, now e5. And it's obvious that Bobby Fischer isn't probably castling here kingside, because this activity of the bishop is very dangerous, and it of course prevents this idea because it covers this g1 square. But here, after this e5, again we have this weak d6 pawn. Now you see we have occupied this d6 with this knight on b5. In the continuation we can place maybe knight on e4 and even more occupy this very weak square. And although we have lost the bishop pair, here if we create this outpost of one of these knights on d6, it could be really deadly for black, because this bishop is then paralyzed. You cannot play, of course, d6 in order to develop this bishop. And here, after potential b6 and bishop on b7, the most common idea is just to get out, or maybe play bishop on f3, trade off at least one of these bishops, and go into a favorable endgame with this potential knight outpost on d6. So here, finally, now Mikhail Tal played the move a6, but now we have e takes f6, of course, with some counter attacks here, and here a takes b5, and now f takes g7. Of course, rook on g8 was played, and it's really better position here for white. Although, again, I'm pointing out, black has the bishop pair, but you'll need many moves in order to get this bishop working. Still, white has 2 more moves to play in order to finish the fully development here. This rook is a little bit stuck to this pawn on g7, to this attack, and you see this pawn will really cause some troubles in the continuation of the game for Mikhail Tal. This pawn is basically a piece, Here Bobby Fischer played, of course, the most accurate move, knight on e4 with an attack on the bishop on c5, and here you have to play, of course, bishop on e7 in order to prevent this knight from jumping into the position. Here also now the f6 square is also target. Queen on d4 was played. If you try something like, I don't know, a bishop on b4 here in this position, it doesn't bring you so much. Of course, you have to move c3, bishop on e7, and again queen on d4. So it just improves the position here. And here, as I said, bishop on e7 was played, queen on d4. So rook on a4 played by Mikhail Tal, which seems that it's a great attack, but again it doesn't bring you so much, because Bobby Fischer, of course, one of the best tacticians, one of the best attacking players, he doesn't retreat, of course, immediately. He has to find at least some kind of counter attack, because with this activity of this queen, of this knight, and of this pawn, of course he finds the move knight on f6. If you try something like king on d8, this is really dangerous, because then you have queen on b6 with a check. You have to bring the queen on c7, and after a trade of queens we can take the rook, and this is now, of course, a completely winning position for white. So that's why after knight on f6 you have to take, and here queen takes on f6. And if you evaluate the position again, you see this bishop is really paralyzed. It's blocked out by its own pawns. We have now again a very annoying pawn on g7, still one move far away from castling, and this rooks on the d and e file will cause also some troubles around black's king, because the king is really endangered. Although covered with 3 pawns around him, still white has here really great attacking chances, even some possibilities to open somehow the e file with the move f5. So as I said, this main problem is the rook on g8, and it wouldn't be a problem if you just have to stop this pawn from promotion. But the more important thing is that we have the light square bishop, and the light square bishop can always jump here on the square d3 and then attack this very weak h7 pawn. So that's why here queen on c7 was played, and here Bobby Fischer finds a very nice tactical idea. He castles long here, and he leaves now this a2 pawn hanging, and this is really great tactical preparation here, because after rook takes on a2 we have king on b1 attacking the rook, and here Mikhail Tal played sort of an inaccuracy. Rook on a6 was played here by the magician from Riga, but probably with some ideas to get some kind of a counter attack on the queen on f6. But the best move, although it's also better position here for white, is the move queen on a5 instead of this rook on a6. But here Bobby Fischer probably calculated all of that, because here after queen on a5 you have a very powerful move b4, and b4 is killing now black's position, because of course you cannot take. Then of course we can immediately take this rook, and it's game over. You have some more checks, but it's nothing special. The white king can escape here, and it will be, of course, a completely winning endgame here. So if you try something like queen on a4 in order to attack this pawn on b4, then you have simple queen on c3, king on d8 has to be played, but now f5 will really open the position. Here you have to even give up the rook in some occasions. As said, this is really dangerous here for black. The king is in the center. We have some pawn breakthrough possibilities. Again, also ideas, bishop on d3, bishop on h7. So I said that's why here after king on b1, rook on a6 was played, and it was even worse, because now Bobby Fischer simply took bishop on b5, and here we have rook on b6, and now bishop on d3. This is now the idea, with this weakness on h7, and here Mikhail Tal played the move e5. And we are really now in a critical, in this critical tactical moment of the game. Here most of us, I don't know, would play something like queen takes on e5, at least grab a pawn, maybe even go away with the queen on g5 and similar ideas. but not Bobby Fischer, really one of the best chess players in history. He played the move. You can pause the video and try to find the best move here. It's really a great one, and if you found this move, I think it's unbelievable what Bobby saw in this game, because he played the move f takes e5, and here of course you have to take the queen, because the queen is now supported here on f6. White has a huge activity with his pieces, again with the threat to play bishop on h7, and here Mikhail Tal had to take. We have rook takes on f6, and now e takes f6. But the position has now changed because we have now the pawn on g7. And I said in the beginning that this pawn will cause many problems for Mikhail Tal. Here, after this g7 survived for a long stage in the game, and here now the g7 pawn is even supported by this f6 pawn, and this is really a deadly pawn here. So queen on c5 by Fischer, and now of course bishop on h7. We have queen on g5. Bishop takes on g8. Now finally queen on f6, getting rid of this f6 pawn which was supporting the g7 pawn. Now rook on f1, and here queen on g7, and now bishop on f7. Of course, taking this bishop doesn't bring you so much, because this leads into a favorable endgame for white. So that's why here after bishop on f7 we have king on d8, and now bishop on e3. Very nice move. Here queen on h6 has to be played. If you try something like king on c7, then bishop on f5 simplifies the position. White has these two connected pass pawns on the g and h file. Here bishop on d3, a little bit consolidating the pieces, then get this pawn supported by these rooks, and just keeping pushing them forward, and one of them will promote to queen for sure. So that's why here after bishop on e6, queen on h6 was played in order to grab at least one of these pawns. But now here simply bishop on d7, bishop takes on d7, and now rook on f7. Here we have queen on h2, but now rook on d7, taking the bishop, and in the next move we can also take one of these pawns. So here king on e8 was played. Now Bobby Fischer tried some checks. Here king on d8 was played, but again rook on d7, king on c8, rook on c7, king on d8, and now rook from f to d7, king on e8, and now rook on d1. Now b5, and here Mikhail Tal probably thought maybe he can save this pawn and on b5 and at least take one of these pawns, and hoping for a draw here. But now Bobby Fischer simply played rook on b7. We have queen on h5, but now very interesting move g4. We want to give up this pawn, because in the next move we want really to take this b5 pawn. Here queen on h3 was played. Now simply pushing forward, g5, queen on f3, and now rook on e1 with an attack. Here king on f8, but now rook takes on b5, king on g7, rook on b6. Here we have queen on g3, but now rook on d1, it's not a problem. Queen on c7 with an attack on the rook, but now rook from d2, d6, queen on c8. Anything what you do here is completely winning for white. I'm just going to show you the continuation here. b3 was played, king on h7, and now rook on a6, and in this position the magician from Riga, the legendary Mikhail Tal, resigned here. So great game, I think, by Bobby Fischer. Great queen sacrifice in order to get the supported pass pawn on g7 with the preparation, and with this powerful bishop on d3 in order to take this h7 pawn. Great game, and as I said, this was really the first win by Bobby Fischer against Mikhail Tal. He had many draws, many losses, and now finally it was his time to come. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, you can watch my other best chess games of all times if you want to see some other best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And you can also watch my commented chess games played by computers, some more Alpha Zero, Lila C0, and Stockfish games from the TCEC Season 15. Don't forget, we have in July the beginning of this TCEC Season 16. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like the content. Thank you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.